Hi, welcome to Diecast QT. I'm QT, and in this video I'm going to be restoring this mess of a Hot Wheels Royal Flash 1978 model. I got this in a job lot of about 60 equally damaged vehicles. This one was probably the worst of the lot and is completely caked in paint. As you can see, it's had its windows painted silver, its wheels painted silver, and at least 2 coats. That's what it looked like before it was painted, and I'm going to try and bring it back to that state. So start by drilling out the post. It's a metal base, but the metal was quite soft, and I'll fully admit I drilled right through it. And any second now you'll see the golden moment. There you go. Massive hole. Too big for my hex screw's head, so I had to glue in an extra bit of metal in there to hold the thread and then head of the screw. So here I'm using a burr tool on a Dremel, trying to get the wheels out. I did try and tidy up these wheels, but wasn't very successful. The silver just wouldn't go, so I'm going to replace them. Into a bath of used Dettol. I realised that it was probably too used. After a night in there, it did very little. So I put in a fresh lot of Dettol, stuck them in again, and the paint bubbled as desired. You just see that buggy in there. You'll see in a later video. But even after, I think it was 2 or 3 days in the Dettol, really thick paint that was on there just shit. So I've got it off as best I could and scraped it a bit because it was quite soft. Got most of it off. Just make out the original tempo there I scratched off. So it's a long and arduous process, but I eventually got most of the paint off before having to reach for the Dremel on a brush. It was the window that I was really concerned about because that had sort of silver. I don't know what kind of paint it was, but it's off of one of them sort of permanent ink pens. And I stuck it in the Dettol, which actually softened it a fair bit. I just needed to get off enough that I could actually get some sandpaper in there to get rid of the remaining residue. It's already looking better. So onto the base. I'll give this just a bit of a polish, get it back to kind of mint condition. My buffing wheel there is flying apart as I'm using it. So I'll swap out for a new one, and suddenly everything's great again. fitting in some new axle pipes using my standard aluminium tubes. So I've cut the channels, it's just a case of then gluing those in place. Copious amounts of super glue. At this point I didn't even know what wheels I'm going to be using, and I didn't actually choose the wheels until the very last moment. So now I'm going to get rid of the remaining paint that's on there, using a nice wire brush in the Dremel. At this point I wasn't 100% confident I was going to be able to get a decent restoration from this. You can just make out the window in the background there, still showing signs of silver, and the paint on this was kind of difficult to shift, but was coming off gradually. As you'll see by the end of this bit here, the casting came up nicely in the end. Hardly any damage from the years of clear abuse it's been subject to. And you're seeing this at 4 times the speed at which I was doing it, so it did take quite a while. So once I finished with the brush, it was then on with this pick to get into this sort of nooks and crannies, get rid of all the sort of tiny bits of paint that are stuck in all the casting lines and door seams inside the little holes in the back where the number plate would be, and the lights themselves. And just give it a once over with some fine steel wool, just to give some polish and key the surface so we can get some paint on it. Just get a quick once over with a file to get rid of any kind of burring around the edges of the windows there. Didn't go too hard with it, keep it as kind of original as possible. So onto that window piece. And let's just work through the various grits of sandpaper from 400 up to 3000. Again, wasn't confident that we were going to be able to get all the paint off it, but I'm happy with the end result, which you'll see as we progress through these grits here. So the toughest part of this was the side of the windows, because they had little ridges which were in place of the sort of struts on the door. So I just kind of work around those, so I didn't actually wear them down. But I managed to get in there to get rid of as much of the silver paint as I could. And in the back left there, you can just make out the interior of the car. I didn't bother recording myself doing it, but I did scrape off all the paint on the bumpers, which just came off very easily with a dental pick. And the interior was pretty clean already, so I didn't do much more than clean it with soap and water. So we're into the kind of polishing phase of the sanding here. I'd say anything above 1000 is drifting into polishing territory. To 2500. Finally 3000. When you consider I started out with an opaque silver mess, this hasn't turned out bad. So I'll just put some primer onto the casting using white primer, which I'll then paint over with white paint. Wasn't my wisest move, but it's going to be very white. And now we'll do the final stage of the glass, dipping this in some Pledge Revive It. Never fails to impress me. Putting some X2 on there. I did 2 coats of this just to make sure I've got it all, because it's not the easiest thing to tell if you manage to paint it on top of white primer. So I made my own decals based on the kind of source images I could find, and had an absolute nightmare putting these on. To begin with, I sealed the decals with some varnish, which I later discovered was water-based varnish, and it just went everywhere, ruined the decals completely. So I made some new decals, used a non-water-based varnish, managed to get them on the car okay, and then forgot that it was water-based varnish and clear coated the car with the same varnish, and the end result was that the decal bled everywhere again. So stripped off the varnish, stripped off the decals. Fortunately the varnish hadn't dried before I realised that it was going horribly wrong, so I managed to get it all off without having to strip the paint right down to bare metal again. So on the final one I used some lacquer to seal it in, and used some normal Tamiya clear to do the clear coat on the car in the end. But this is the third set of decals you're watching me put on here, and I over lacquered the decals, hence why they're so difficult to get off the backing. See how resistant it is to coming off. Try doing it all gingerly with the tweezers there. In the end, just had to push it off with a finger, then pull out the tweezers. And it's a case of aligning the stripe with the flag on the front. Knock it out several times while you're trying to get the excess microsol off. I think I'll be good at it by now, having done it 3 times. So we're ready for the final reveal. Let me know what you think.